Welcome to another episode of CyberSafe News and Views. My name is Lee, and I'll be your guide. In today's episode, passwords are dead. But how am I going to log in? More to come. Pay attention. And the news today. In the news this last week, authorities used an Android vulnerability to access activists' phone. Unreal. We'll talk about that one in more detail. And do you use Chrome extensions? Be careful. More than a few were exposed, hacked, got an update, and suddenly you're compromised. We'll talk about that one too. Kaspersky, if you have Kaspersky, you know they're on their way out. Well, they installed software on your computer as they were on their way out. Let's talk. And then lastly, this week, NIST drops password complexity and mandatory reset rules. Let's talk about what was their assumption and why they did it. All right, let's get started.
Technology is an integral part of our lives. We use it every day, and it extends our access to information through things we can't even see. With technology surrounding us and growing at such a fast rate, knowledge of how to use this resource and stay safe in the meantime is imperative. Welcome to CyberSafe News and Views, where we answer questions and share information to keep you in the know and cyber safe.
Passwords are dead. Really? You're just sensationalizing this, right? No, passwords are truly dead. If you logged into your computer with a password, what do you do if that password has recently been hacked? We'll talk about that in more detail, but so many people use the same password for everything. That's really at the core of this, why passwords are dead. Because if your password gets hacked and you use one password for everything, then suddenly everything's hacked. So passwords are dead. Don't just think about your computer here. This can be everything. Your access to your bank, your access to your favorite online shopping store, Amazon or other. I like Amazon. But all is not hopeless, and it's not expensive to fix this problem. Everybody wants you to be secure. You just have to know how. So let's talk about this. Really, the death of traditional passwords. I've got a password and it secures everything in my environment. It secures my PC. I also happen to use the same password for my bank and for eBay and for everything else in my environment. Really not a good concept. If you're reusing passwords, you have to stop. But even above that, that's really why this is. Passwords are dead. Nobody wants to trust your password because in the back end, they see the complexity of your password, or should I say, the lack of complexity in your password. Or worse, they've been hacked. We'll talk about that one too. They've been hacked. They've exposed your password, and yet you haven't changed your password. So they know the data is out there and you haven't changed your password. So that's one reason. So reuse passwords, hacked passwords, weak passwords. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And NIST is in the news today, as I mentioned in the intro. We'll talk about that one because NIST isn't stupid. Let's just be clear. They've reduced the requirements because they just weren't helping. But they also have some assumptions in there. So weak passwords, if your password, I've heard the exchange so many times. Oh, what's the password to such and such? Oh, it's my typical. Please stop. No typical password. Don't reuse passwords. Don't use weak passwords. Your pet's name, your anniversary dates, just the common things that people can find out about you online and then try on Amazon or whatever public facing your bank application they can find. Just not a good idea. So this is really the reason for the additional passwords. And I mentioned passwords have been breached. They've been exposed through the different breaches. Think I'm lying? How about AT&T, Facebook, Yahoo, Equifax, Canva? That's just to name a few. And mostly all of those were mostly recent. So if you use any of those, your password's probably exposed. And if you're reusing that password anywhere else, absolutely end of the world. You have to stop. And this list of hacked entities that have your password is growing daily. So let's try and make a change. Be Michael Jackson. Make that change. Sorry, I'm not really a musician, but there are other things we can do. We don't have to just rely on a password. You know, it must be so long and so complex. Let's not deal with that anymore. There are systems that I don't even know my password to. I have a password, but if they ever asked me for it, I just would have to tell them I don't know. Why is that the case? Because I have multi-factor authentication turned on. So there are systems like my outlook.com email address. I don't know what the password is. And that email address translates into everything Microsoft that I have personally. So that account gives me access to lots of different things. I don't have a password to it. I mean, it's stored somewhere. I could maybe find something, but they never asked me for the password. They asked me for, hey, 64. And you're like, what's that mean? Well, you have to open up your multi-factor authenticator. Microsoft has one that will authenticate virtually anything in the universe. Google also has one. They're both free. So when you get into a situation where someone, one of your online applications or shopping sources or anything wants multi-factor, you have the ability to download one of those two. And there's probably others. I'm sure there are others. Those are the two that I'm familiar with that I use. And you can scan a code, loads it in, you give it the multi-factor. And then when the next time you go to log in, it says, hey, 64 or 72, or enter your code from the Authenticator app. And it's a, 6-digit code generally. And that's something that it's depending on something you have and something your username. So it's not just saying, hey, enter your password. It might do that as well. Some systems still ask you to enter your password, but via the multi-factor, it's then saying, okay, yeah, but anybody could have your password. So I'm not going to trust it. So 64. And I keep saying that same one, but it could be any number. Now, there are other ways to do multi-factor. It doesn't have to be through through an authenticator app. It could be through your email, sending you a code. Hey, enter your 6-digit code for your email. It's not as secure, but it works as long as your system isn't critical. If you could lose that and then get it back in the back end, if someone hacked your email and then you were like, yeah, not the end of the world, I'll get it back. There was nothing critical, no compliance related information in there, then fine. You can do that. I have systems that do that for me today that just don't do anything else. Now, everybody's moving to that multi-factor. So the one we've already talked about, everyone's moving there. And if they're not, you need to look for a different source of authentication. But other ways are, sending you a text. You log in. Yeah, but anybody can know your password. What's the text that I just sent you? Again, not as secure as an authenticator app, but still some systems, that's all they do. It's better than nothing. Okay, so let's continue that. Now, there are also ways, if you've got a newer computer, you might have, hey, read my biometric, read my fingerprint, look at my face. Windows Hello does that. Windows Hello you open the machine and it'll go, hey, there you are. I see you. Okay, you can get in. And those are fairly secure. Now you're going to find people that are like, well, it's not secure at all. I understand, but unless they've got a 3D printed image of your head, they're not going to get in. So are there more secure ways? Yes, but hey, that's better than a 4-digit PIN that's anyone can try and be in minutes. Let's be honest. It's still better than that. So it sees you, it reads your fingerprint, and there are ways to add these things to virtually any PC out there. So if you've got a PC, a laptop, a desktop, and It doesn't have a fingerprint reader. Go to Amazon. You can find one. Don't go for the cheapest ones. Let's just be clear. So I'm on a saying today. Don't go for the cheapest ones. Go for one that has good reviews, not the cheapest. It looks like it might hold up. They will break. And then you can implement a fingerprint reader. You can put a camera on your desktop machine and enable Windows Hello and go through that. So biometrics are important and possible to be added to all this. So you've got multiple different ways to authenticate your computer. By the way, your computer, we'll talk about that later, but you can set up an email through one of the different authenticator apps, and it will automatically log you in. I honestly don't know the password to any Windows PC I have. I don't have a password. I have an authenticator app. So what can you do? That's what we're getting into. Is it hopeless? Just put your head in the sand? No, it is not hopeless. So for your smaller offices, if you've got a small business, it's only family, whether that's just in a healthcare practice or lawyer's office. It's just family. I don't have to worry about someone doing anything malicious or stealing data on purpose. Then you can do what I said and do like I do for my personal devices. I set up an Outlook.com email address, which by default will walk you through setting up multi-factor and will not give you, you'll have to enter a password. You have to do all the typical password settings. You have to set up a rescue email in case, but then it walks you through multi-factor and says, hey, every time you go to log in, I'm going to prompt your authenticator app, which we've set up. Then your computer is more secure. It's on the leading end of being the most secure possible. So that's an easy way for a small office, a small practice business to authenticate your PCs, get them into multi-factor so that you can keep them more secure. And it's not just, hey, here's a 4-digit PIN. We don't want to continue that practice. Yes, for my less secure devices, I use a 4-digit PIN. A couple of them are 6 or 8-digit, but so that's a small office. You can do that. There are some security concerns because if they're not family, I mentioned if they're not family, that email address could allow them to store anything from your office and it immediately leaves the site, gets stored in the cloud. So there are some security concerns. Don't think there aren't. But again, family, small practice, hey, it's just me, small office. I'm the only one in the office. I'm the one that keeps track of all this, or I just want to do it for myself. Definitely use an Outlook.com email address, integrate that with Microsoft Authenticator, and it'll get you on your way to securing your devices so that you can abandon the password. All right. The larger offices, if you are, even if you have just one person besides you in the office, but they are an employee, not family, not related to you, you really need to integrate to Microsoft through your domain emails. So if you've got Joe Smith at joesmith.com, or maybe not joesmith.com, but mybusiness.com. Great. What we want to do is get that to authenticate through Microsoft, which they have services that will do all that, and then say, oh yeah, you want to integrate to your phone and set up multi-factor authentication so that we can ask you for, hey, 72. And then you enter that on your phone. Yes, you need to do that. Now, there are some considerations. There's a cost to that. Microsoft doesn't do that for free. They're not just out there to help everyone be more secure. They will, but it costs. So be aware it's going to cost you something. And then you're going to have to get into, hey, our front desk person doesn't really know how to use the Microsoft Authenticator. They're not going to know how to set it up. Someone's going to have to help them with that. Someone's going to have to probably do it for them. So there's some staff training requirements. And there are some compliance benefits that you don't have to worry about. Hey, is my device secure? If you lose it, My password was super easy. Yeah, you don't have to worry about that. Your password now goes through Microsoft, and through that, as part of that service, Microsoft can do different remote wipes. Hey, I've lost this device. Oh, would you like to wipe it out and just remove all your data from it? Hot dog, I sure would. You can get certain benefits from that as well. All right. So don't think it's hopeless. There's lots of new tech out there. Just do me a favor as you think about going through this process, reach out to someone that can help you, that someone knows what they're doing, and then prepare for the change. Don't go in one morning and say, today I'm going to set up an Outlook.com email address and get on multi-factor. Yeah, it's going to take you longer than that because you're going to lose your desktop and there are other security and setup concerns. Okay. So, all right, my desk is beeping. I don't know why. So prepare for the change and then reach out if you need help. Reach out to someone that you know or leave us a comment down below. We'll help you with what we can. All right. There's a webinar topic about this where we're going to dive deeper into it. I'm going to show you the Microsoft Authenticator app. I'm going to show you how you get something into it from a QR code, and then the typical 6-digit codes that it provides to you then and how you can enter that. We're going to walk you through that in much more detail with a question and answer time. So if you're interested in that, go to cybersafenewsandviews.com and sign up for the webinar at the bottom. Now, the news. The news is a never-ending source of humor to me. It's just the way I see it. You either laugh or you cry, one of the two. So authorities used an Android vulnerability to access an activist's phone. Basically, they were interested in what exactly this activist was doing. They did something to get in trouble, to get noticed. And, well, you can't unlock my phone. My phone's locked. Yeah, good luck. And they used a vulnerability in Android to hack the phone because the phone wasn't patched. So in the definite, please patch your device category, patch your devices, keep them up to date. Your phone is only as secure as your most recent update. If you don't have an update, you are potentially exposed. Now, how insecure is that, or what's the big risk? It may not be critical. You're probably not an activist that gets in trouble. You're probably not engaged with the law, but keep your device patched, because if you ever do get into any of those situations where you're just walking through the airport and someone is actively trying to hack devices based on a certain patch level, you'll be a victim. Okay. So that one was interesting. Google has patched the Android vulnerability that was exposed. So it's not something you need to be continually concerned about, but if you're not up to date, you do. All right. Everyone uses Chrome extensions, right? I do. I don't use many. And this article is validation for me for not using many. Extensions were hijacked. So basically, Chrome updated, but these extensions updated. The problem is that on the back end where they were created, they were hijacked. They were collecting other information. They had too high of elevated permissions so that they could collect this information and they could offload that. So it gave them access to payment information, personal data, and everything in your browser history, everything in your browser, period. So if you had credit cards information in there, it has everything, all your passwords. They literally had access to everything. So a couple of good things to keep in mind. Not all extensions are good just because it makes my PC look good. It, changes from daytime to nighttime. That was one that was hacked, actually. Be careful. They're not all good. They're not all beneficial. And on business machines, only use extensions you need to run the business. If you don't need it, please don't use it. And if you're not using it, please remove it from your browser extension list so that you don't have to be exposed to this risk in the future. All right. Kaspersky. You should all be aware, Kaspersky was banned in the US. The federal government said, you've got too many ties to other areas. We really don't want you here in the US. You need to get out. They fought it. Kaspersky fought it. Kaspersky lost. So they're on their way out. The end time is coming or just passed, or I'm not familiar with exactly when it ends, because I've been screaming to get off Kaspersky for years. But on their way out, one thing they've done without your permission, without your consent, if you had Kaspersky installed on your machine, they had made a deal with Ultra AV that they would take over. So did they give Ultra AV your email? Did they give them your phone number so that you could be texted? No, they just automatically installed software on your computer. They installed Ultra AV, and you can say, well, it's antivirus. Okay, they installed new antivirus. Yeah, but doing it without your consent, without your permission, with nothing else. How good is Ultra AV? I don't know. I don't use it. Do I want it on my machine? Is it free? I have so many questions. Or is it super expensive? Why did they do it? They violated your rights and did it and walked away. Just absolutely mind-blowing, mind-boggling why they would do that. So if you still have Kaspersky, please uninstall it. If you're not a fan of Ultra AV, personally, I'm not. I would uninstall it, move to something else. Now, if you're in a compliance arena, you need to answer one additional question besides what you're going to run for antivirus, and that's why. So you can't just say, well, I'm going to use this free antivirus over here because it's free. That doesn't go so well when you get hacked and you get audited and they say, why did you pick that? Because that's a question that gets asked. You're making IT security decisions. You need to have a good reason for that on the back end. So my recommendation is go out to review sites or ask folks like me for antivirus recommendations, and we can make those for you. And you can list out that you asked a security expert. So do something like that, but don't just choose it because it's free, please. All right. So Kaspersky, get it going. And in our last article, this one's interesting. Don't read too much into it the wrong way, but NIST drops password complexity and mandatory reset rules. So let's go back. What was NIST doing? NIST was forcing a 15-character in their recommendations. Now, they don't force anything. They make recommendations to the industry, and then the industry adopts those, and then you get judged based on how you've done against those if you're ever hacked or get audited or what have you. But they had set up a 15-character complex password, uppercase, lowercase, number, special character, and people were using just garbage complex passwords. Just, you look at your keyboard and use hit the 1 and hit the Q and just go through, and it was just people were using it completely the wrong way. So, and it wasn't making anyone really more secure. Now, I have my opinions on this, and I kind of disagree from exactly everything they're talking about, but they removed it down to a 8 to 15 character password, much more manageable, still hackable. And if it's 14 or if it's under 14, it's hackable in anything from a few months to very quickly. But NIST is assuming that you have multi-factor on it now as well, because that's been a recommendation for years. So don't think that, hey, I can use a short password now and NIST says it's okay and I can keep it. By the way, they used to say you had to change your password every 2 to 3 months. 2 to 3 months. So how do you like a 15-character complex password they have to change every time you turn around? No. So now they're saying 8 to 15, and they're saying you only have to change it when there's been data exposed and your password's been exposed. So don't just think I can use a cheap, eight character password that's all lowercase, and I never have to change it again. Not true. And I don't agree on this completely. So I realize NIST is a standards body, National Institute of Standards and Technology. So they are a pie in the sky. This is the best. I'm personally of the belief you should still create a 15 character password. It has to be more than 14 or it's hackable in too short of a time. 14 or more, excuse me. And then you use a password manager. Use an authenticator app. So you can have your phone on there and you can use an authenticator app so that your password manager feeds in your password, stores your information locally. You've got all that data encrypted and password protected. And then your authenticator app says, hey, is this you? And if it is, you're let in. I still think that's a better way of doing things so that you don't have to be worried about, hey, my password was exposed real quick. Go change my password. You don't have to worry about that. Now, there is some cost with what I'm talking about. Password manager is something like $40, depending on which one you get, $40 per year. Not going to break the bank. And your authenticator app is free. You never have to pay for that. So I would still prefer that you do a password manager and an authenticator app and keep your passwords complex. Use your password manager to generate passwords for you. Even better, you don't have a clue what your password is, and it's got two-factor on it. So at the end of the day, that's what I would recommend. Well, that's the news for the week. Thank you for joining CyberSafe News and Views. A couple things that I want to mention. If you go to cybersafenewsandviews.com and you can look for our show notes in there. You can download my ebook where we talk about the NIST security recommendations for the small healthcare office. You can sign up for our Tech Tuesday, March 18th webinar that will be doing a deep dive on today's topic, including question and answer. We're going to have a PowerPoint that walks you through exactly how you do this, because if you're not familiar, I want to help you get to where you are. So that'll be a deep dive into the topic, and you can sign up for our monthly Tech Notes subscription. If you're a DIY cybersecurity person and you get into HIPAA compliance or PCI compliance at all, you can sign up for that. It's $18.95 a month, and you can get all of the recommendations to help do this yourself. This month was PC maintenance. Next month, we'll talk about some additional topics and go from there. But if you have any questions or comments, please leave us a comment down below. We answer all questions. If you found this content valuable, please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, stay cyber safe.